was a block party. It was a dish party. It was a big party in Denver for the Nuggets, making their NBA Finals debut, and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray showing up and showing out, especially in the first half, Monica.
Absolutely. Jamal Murray, obviously, terrific scoring night for him, 26 points. But Nikola Jokic had an assist to every one of the starters in the first quarter of this ball game. Efficiency, no rust. Rust where? No rust.
Right. 10 dimes in the first half and no turnovers, Alan. That's ridiculous from a big man.
Yeah, and he was just finding the open man. It sounds cliche, but that's legit what was going on. Dominating the game, and he only had 4 shots in the first half.
All right, Murray driving. Oh, you want a shot? Here it is. Now he's wide open. And what does he do? He just breaks the Heat's defense.
Sometimes you're the open man. And once he became the open man, he started doing what he does well, and that is, of course, making shots. One of the most unstoppable forces in the league.
Again, 5 shots in the first 3 quarters from Jokic, and then you start to see the Heat have some life. And what changed for them in this offense?
They started making threes. I mean, it was as simple as that. Miami is a team that they do rely on the three-point shot. And Kyle Lowry came in to start the fourth quarter, and he started knocking down threes. Rhythm, momentum started going the Heat way. And now all of a sudden, look at the scoreboard. Yes, the time is ticking down, but this corner 3, we got a ball game all of a sudden.
Yes, inside double digits. Haywood Highsmith had 18 points. That's more than Jimmy Butler and Caleb Martin combined. But it's all about Jokic, 27, 14, and 10. Murray had 26 points. Bam Adebayo, he showed up. I'm not sure anybody else did with the Heat in their offense. Jokic, winners talk afterwards.
They fight, they never quit, and we just wanted to get the first punch, to hold that team to 93 points. I think it's a really good job.
I definitely think they came out with a lot of physicality, and we have to be able to match that. They did their job on their home floor. We'll adjust, do some things very differently, and come out here and be ready to get one for game 2.
Jokic and Murray, the dynamic duo, just the third pair of teammates to each have at least 20 points and 10 dimes in a finals game, joining Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the Showtime Lakers of Magic Johnson and James Worthy. Jokic and Murray combined to score or assist on 87 of the Nuggets' 104 points in Game 1 as they take the series lead and remain undefeated on their home turf in the postseason now, 9-0. Windy joining us here. We're going to get to Windy's thoughts in a second. I want to start specifically with Jokic. When you watch him play, specifically passing the ball, who does he remind you of?
Yeah, and you think we rifle through the history of the NBA, and you can go through Jason Kidd, you can go through Steve Nash, you can go through Magic Johnson, Bob Cousy, you can go all I kept coming up with was a guy that wears number 15 and also owns Denver. Patrick Mahomes. That's what he is. I mean, think about this. He looks slow, but he plays because he thinks faster. He's clairvoyant. Mahomes the same way. You can throw all different things at him. He adjusts on the fly. Never looks rattled, never looks sped up. In fact, as I was watching this game and watching his passing, especially in that first half, where he's throwing guys open. That's, again, another NFL phrase. Look at some of the passes that he makes where they're right into your hands. Perfect. Sometimes he puts it in a spot where you just go ahead and get it. Look at this pass right here to Gordon. That's only Gordon could have caught that ball, even though he was guarded in the paint. And so it just makes you think of Patrick Mahomes. And so I wanted, what's his QBR in this game? That's what I'm looking for, because the stats tell me he absolutely dominated this game. When you think about what he did for his teammates, 14 of 19 they were shooting off his passes, 11 of 14 on open looks because he found the open man. 6 different players made a field goal off his assists, and 58 points scored or assisted on by him in this game.
The QBR is 100, by the way.
I
Look it up. Yeah,
I like
it's about right.
100%. Well, you're the numbers and stats guy. I'm just going to go with the names. I have now coined him Optimus Dime, right? Like, he is just incredible in terms of finding his teammates. He joins Jason Kidd as the only other guy to have a triple-double in his finals debut. And so, again, he continues to make history. And I just love Jokic's personality. I can remember interviewing him post-game in Philly a season ago. And I'm like, are you aware that you're making history? And he's kind of like, I'm just playing ball. Right. And I think that, while that cool, calm, collected, understated mindset is a part of this Nuggets team, that's sort of like the front-facing thing. In reality, we know they are operating from a huge place of just revenge on anybody and everybody that decided to talk more about the Lakers than them in the previous series, and whatever else they've decided to add to that chip on their shoulder. Listen, this team is really, really special. And I think, you saw in Game 1, I think the Heat can junk it up and make it interesting, but this team is really, really special.
All right, well, we'll see if they can junk it up in Game 2. And let's bring in Windy. You were there for Game 1. What adjustment did the Heat D make in that fourth quarter that you expect more of in Game 2?
Yeah, well, there's not much of an adjustment you can make on Jokic, but the Heat actually went into this game, Kevin, with the idea that they were going to make Jokic a scorer. And as Alan just said, he had 10 assists and no turnovers in the first half. It didn't work. So in the fourth quarter, they did something that they didn't want to do, which was play zone when Jokic was on the court. They were afraid of Jokic in the zone because the way you beat a zone is get the ball to the middle with a playmaker. Well, he's maybe one of the best middle playmakers in the history of the sport. So they didn't go to the zone in the first half. The fourth quarter, they went zone. And after only taking 5 shots in the first 3 quarters, Jokic was forced into 7. I don't want to say forced because he was still making all of them. He was forced into shooting more and not passing the ball as much, and the Heat actually won the fourth quarter. That said, had it actually gotten to a close game, the Nuggets are the number 1 home clutch team in the league, so they'd have been comfortable there. But the Heat's game plan fell apart in their hands in the first few minutes of the game because of the Nuggets' size and Jokic's greatness. And so look for them to roll the dice a little bit and play more zone with Jokic out there starting on Sunday.
2 free throw attempts in Game 1, the fewest in a playoff game in NBA history. Meanwhile, the Nuggets committed only 8 personal fouls. That's 4 fewer than any other team in finals history. So if you told Eric Spoelstra, hey, you're going to hold the Nuggets to 104 points, Bam Adebayo is going to give you 26 and 13, you're feeling really good. But then if you tell him you're going to the free throw line and 2 free throw attempts, did that stand out on how this game was called, or just the Nuggets had a pretty clean game?
Yeah, I would go pretty clean game. This didn't look like a game where you're going, wow, they're letting a lot go. Wow, this is a real physical game. They're just not calling anything. It was more or less that the Heat were staying on the perimeter, that most of their open shots were on the perimeter, and a lot of times they have lived off of that. They have done a great job in making those open shots on kickouts. They were not doing that in this game. That was the struggle for them. When you look at some of these shots, that's an open look. Yes, the contest comes late, but it's an open look. And this is what they've lived on. They have thrived on. See, relocate, that's a great shooter. That's Duncan Robinson, I believe, and he just knocks that one a little to the left. Max Strus, by the way, we all had to feel for him. Man, You go 0 for 10, you 0 for 9 from 3. Oof. That's just a rough night. These are clean looks. They were 5 for 16 on what's considered wide open shots. No defender within 6 feet or more in this game. In the Celtics series, they shot 48% on those shots. So was this just a one-game thing, or is this something to watch now in this series?
One-game thing or something to watch, because one of the things that stood out is we didn't see the Heat attack. They were not attacking in the inside.
Can 2 things be true? Yes, 2 things can be true. I'm not asking you that. I think 2 things are true. I think that this was a one-game occurrence, but I also think the free throw thing is not going to be forced the way that we are accustomed to seeing the Heat do it, right? Like when you look at the way Jimmy Butler plays, he's able to find gaps and he's able to pump fake. Think about that iconic play versus Al Horford in the previous series, right? The pump fakes get guys going. Guys that bump on pump fakes usually are at a disadvantage in terms of length or size. There's no reason for Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. to pump fake. Jokic is not going to pump fake because that's not really his game. Like the idea that the lanes to attack are going to be limited in this series, I think is true. Can the Heat also shoot the 3-ball better? Yes. So I think 2 things are true.
Okay, help us now find the truth with Jimmy Butler. Where is Jimmy Butler right now? Specifically, 14 shots, just 13 points.
All perimeter.
Perimeter.
That's the problem.
Was that stunning?
It's again, I just don't think Jimmy Butler's the kind of player that forces anything. So if it's not there, he's not going to force it. He might have to. Because that's how they're playing him. They are fine with Bam. Go ahead. Let him. Somebody's got to score, right? A lot of times with defenses, you're not going to shut out a team. So we'll give that up. What you don't want is to get Jimmy rolling. That's what you don't want. So they're keeping on the perimeter. He's got to figure out. He only had 8 drives in this game, a playoff low. He was averaging 20 drives a game in the first 4 games of the Celtics series. That's more like him. This game wasn't.
Windy, let's get your thoughts here because we asked you specifically about what the Heat did defensively in the fourth quarter. What must they do out the gate in Game 2 Sunday on ABC offensively?
Yeah, this was just plain as day to me. I thought they were intimidated by the Nuggets' size. It's one thing to know that you're playing against a front line with 3 guys 6'10" and taller. It's another thing to actually go out there and physically deal with it. And I think they were shocked by it. So we saw the same thing happen in Game 1 of the last series against the Lakers after playing a small Warriors team. They came in and faced the size of the Nuggets, and they were shell-shocked. I think the Heat were just not used to those long arms, and I don't think they challenged it. Jimmy Butler's reaction was to not challenge it. You don't ever want to say that Jimmy Butler, a player of his mental strength, was intimidated. But if you watch the way that they, lack of attack there, that's what happened. And so the Heat may have to consider lineup changes to fight size with size, but they're going to have to challenge the size. They weren't even challenging. The referees didn't even have to make that many 50-50 calls because there was very little contact.
That is so stunning, what Wendy just said. They were intimidated, and they were not challenging. We're talking about a Heat identity throughout this entire playoffs where they don't back down, and everybody follows Jimmy Butler about not backing down. You're shaking your head. Did you see this team intimidated?
Intimidate is such a strong word to use with this group.
I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Right, but not with this group because they aren't built like that. But I do know that Michael Malone and company definitely learned something from the Boston Celtics. When Boston was throwing out, obviously Al Horford, you had Robert Williams, you had those guys out there, length against Jimmy Butler. They've got length for days. They know that, and they can put that wall up against him. He was able to make an adjustment in Game 7, late in Game 7. So it's really still, to me, all about your perimeter shots going in. Miami is that team. When they don't make their threes, they're just not as effective. But how does Jimmy Butler attack when he's got to put his head down and literally just try to draw contact and just try to draw fouls? I just don't know that he plays like that because he's better one-on-one using his strength and power, getting his shoulder under your armpit and drawing those fouls. But these guys, as Wendy said, they're 6 to 7 inches taller than him already with the wingspan as well.
Is that McNutts? Yeah, it's time for that, and playoff Jimmy has run out of gas. So is that McNutts or not?
That is McNutts, Kevin Nagandi. Says who? Do you not realize that this guy has been one of the best fourth quarter scorers and clutch scorers over the course of this postseason run? This is the beauty of a series, my friend. He got to see what the Nuggets are doing to him. He has an opportunity to make the necessary adjustments. He'll be back in game 2.
We'll see if Himmy's mad in game 2. The Nuggets will sweep the Heat. Is that McNutts?
That is also McNutts. There's entirely too much pride, too much culture for that to happen. And if they hit some threes yesterday, would we be having a slightly different conversation? It is certainly in the realm of possibility.
Jokic, more dangerous as a passer than a scorer. Is that McNutts?
That is not McNutts. 21 touches in the first half resulted in 33 points. Even when this man touches the basketball, good things happen. And that's not a full-blown assist necessarily. That's not McNutts at all. We already saw in the fourth of this ball game that allowing Jokic to be a scorer put a little bit of a drudge on the Nuggets offense. But I wouldn't just let him score either, though.
That is the key, right? Completely different player in the fourth quarter. And, of course, he led all scorers with 27 points last night, even when he had just 5 shots in the first 3 quarters. Back here with Alan as well as Monica. All right, time to break down things. Break down for us why Jokic is so tough to defend.
All right, let's do it. We're going over to the green screen. Shout out to Dano. We're getting into the McNuts and bolts of it all, my friends. This was one of my favorite plays from this ball game. Again, 2-man game is how it starts. You got Jokic, you got Murray. Jokic gets this basketball, guys, right? Just look at this. First of all, we got to take note of the space here, right? Like, just so much space there. Everybody's got their eyes to him. You know that he's very dangerous as far as making a pass. He's going to let it unfold. These two guys at this point, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., have both done a really good job from making threes at this point in the ballgame. So they get into a little bit of action. They're going to come. We're going to freeze it right here. Bam Adebayo is in such a tough spot. He knows this screen is here. He's got to get over this because technically he's guarding Jamal Murray here, who's been killing it from 3. But also, there's this space that he has to be mindful of in terms of helping Jokic or helping guard Jokic who could get into the paint. Now, let me clear all this stuff up. We're going to play ball. Watch what happens. Great read, great pass. Jamal Murray able to knock down that 3. And that's just Jokic being poised. A little bit later, watch this one. Again, draws that double team here. We'll freeze it. We'll get into this 2-man action. When Jokic is going to set this screen, Jamal Murray's going to have a ton of options. But watch how this Heat defense collapses on Jamal Murray, right? He's going, this is that play, my bad. So this one, obviously Jokic got the ball in the middle and then Jeff Green scored. Here's the 2-man game, my bad. Look at all of this space, freeze it, right? Look at the ground that these guys have to cover to get out to Jokic, right? And so if we could just do this, you already know that this is going to be tough. This is a problem if you are the Miami Heat. But also the thing you gotta point out here, look at this shot clock, guys. He's catching this ball with 1.7 on the shot clock. We talk so much about his pace as a passer, but also as a scorer. No rush, cool, calm, collected, makes the Miami Heat defense pay. And so back on that second play, you just saw him, again, being poised. And I think what makes the Nuggets unique is they know to move to the spots because he's going to find him. Jeff Green cut back door. Duncan Robinson looked away for a second to find a shooter, and Jeff Green snuck behind him and got that layup.
I mean, this has been a theme all morning. He's so deliberate, and he plays at his own pace. It's just wild, and sometimes it looks like he's in slow motion, especially when he's passing the ball. When you're a big man, sometimes we see these guys turnover. Somebody sticks their hand. He is in complete control. Is he the best passer in the NBA, Alan?
Yeah, he is, and statistically, he is certainly as well. In fact, in the playoffs, he has the most passes made per game, over 83. It's almost 20 more than the next player on average. But it's also the assisted to the points created, which is also leading the playoffs at 26.1. So it's not just passing, it's also the passes are resulting in positive things. And as I mentioned, and Monica pointed out too, when we show the passes, has he ever thrown a pass where you're like, wow, that's off?
Yep.
A guy fumbled with it because it was just the pass was not on target. No, his passes are on target, and most of them are thrown with one hand, which is why I kept coming back to the NFL comp and the Patrick Mahomes thing, because just like you said, he looks slow, but he plays fast because he's thinking. He's always one step ahead. The game he processes so much faster than everybody else around him.
A lot of people in Denver saying he should be now the 3-time reigning MVP. Jokic posting his 5th triple-double while shooting at least 60% from the field this postseason. And any list that when you're with Wilt Chamberlain, you're in good company. Tying him with the late, great Wilt Chamberlain in 1967 for the most in a single playoff in NBA history. Also one shy of matching the most over an entire career. LeBron and Magic each have 6. And it's time for the fundamental list here as we have Monica and Alan back here with us. The reason why we're bringing this up, because Jokic was a 2nd-round draft pick. So, Alan, we want your top 5 surprising players and surprising stars in the NBA, because Jokic didn't even play his rookie season. He stayed in his home country.
Yes, well, we'll get to Jokic on this list, but this is not just guys taking the 2nd round. This is just guys that were not lottery picks that ended up becoming stars and major players in their drafts. So the first one I have to go with, come on, Jalen Brunson, the 2nd-round pick. There were 4 Villanova players taken in 2018. He was the 3rd of the 4 taken in that draft. And still, he has become not only the player that the Knicks have longed for and have missed for years at the point guard position, but he's also the player the Dallas Mavericks let go, and they miss him dearly. He has turned into a fantastic scorer at the point guard position. We move on to number 4. How about this guy, Kawhi Leonard? Kawhi Leonard was a guy that Jimmer Fredette outplayed him in a college basketball game. Yes, a Jimmer Fredette mention, because they went head-to-head one game, San Diego State versus BYU, and I watched that game, and Jimmer he couldn't stop Jimmer. Then he became one of the best defensive players in the league, a finals MVP, a 2-time champion. So Kawhi Leonard at a 15th pick has become a great player. Okay, so we move on to number 3. How about Jimmy Buckets? The 30th pick in the draft in 2011, which, by the way, was a very unsung draft. He gets taken 30th overall, the very last 1st-round pick by the Chicago Bulls. And boy, this is a Tom Thibodeau, this is a monster he created. They bring him in, and he becomes, with the Chicago Bulls, a terrific player. Eventually a most improved player in the NBA. A couple of years later, he then since bounced around. You had him in Philly, Kevin. You let him go. Big mistake. And then was born playoff Jimmy. And a perfect fit with the Miami Heat, his mentality, and certainly the Heat culture. Number 2, how about a skinny kid, 19 years old, from Greece? And when you saw his name on the draft board, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to call him Giannis, because I don't know what the rest of that says.
Freak.
But how about the fact that we all in this league have learned how to say Antetokounmpo? Why? Because he won 2 MVPs, he won a championship, and he has become one of the best players of his generation. He grew before our eyes, and we all know how to pronounce that last name now, the one that intimidated all the broadcasters. And of course, at number 1, the obvious one, that is Nikola Jokic, a guy who, when he was drafted on draft night in the 2nd round, not only was he not in the building, he wasn't on TV. You know what was when he was drafted? A Taco Bell commercial. Yo quiero Taco Bell. Yo quiero Nikola Jokic. That's what they wanted in Denver, and he has become an all-time great. A 2nd-round pick, somebody that no one knew who this guy was. He shows up. He had to kick a Pepsi. He had a Pepsi habit. He had to kick that, got himself into great shape, and now on the verge of winning a
The
championship.
announcement came on a bottom line there.
I remember.
While the Taco Bell commercial was running, that Jokic was picked by the Nuggets. What do you think of this list? Because this is incredible right here.
Strong list.
Who am I missing?
Draymond Green.
Yes,
Oh,
Dre's a good one.
sneaky good,
Very
right?
good one.
Would you put Draymond here, or is it
Instead of
Draymond right
Brunson?
here because of the Knicks love that Allen
You know,
has?
we own our Knicks.
Yes.
Our Knicks
Guy averaged
affiliation.
30 a game in the
He did,
playoffs.
but see, this is when
Draymond's
you
a
start
champ.
to get to the ring conversation,
Yes,
right? And so
it's
then
fair.
you're talking Nikola Jokic may be on the brink of it. Jimmy hasn't quite done it, although he's been to the finals. So yeah, just on the rings, I think you got to evaluate 5. But I love that selection.
I'm going
Jason.
recency bias. I'm putting Brunson on the
Listen,
list.
we wear the orange and blue on
Yeah,
our
I
sleeves,
see
baby.
it. I understand. By the way, let's go to number 3 on this list. Jimmy Butler averaging more than 31 points per game on 50% shooting, and the Heat's 12 wins this postseason. Compare that to when they lose. He's averaging 10 fewer points per game while shooting 42% from the floor. Overall, the Heat are 9-1 in these playoffs when Jimmy scores more than 25 points. He had much less than that yesterday, just 13 on 14 shots. I hate to do this, but in this situation, I think we should ask, after what we saw, is this a must-win on Sunday, Game 2 for the Heat?
I've gone into this series thinking every game is a must-win for the Heat. This, to me, they don't have the luxury of picking and choosing. So yes, I would not want to be going back to Miami down 0-2 to this Nuggets squad who does not have the focus issues in the fourth quarter, who has the size, who has the ability to score at different levels, and who has Nikola Jokic. Like, win this ball game.
Yeah, well, it's the finals. Every game
Right.
is a win if you want to, play it
But
that
you
way.
felt really good about
But
Game 2.
I've been saying all along,
Yeah.
that Game 1 wasn't going to tell me a lot. It was just going to see, all right, how is everybody going to play each other? Game 2 was the game. We got 2 days off now. There's adjustments for Miami as far as physically, with the lungs, the altitude. All those excuses are out now on Sunday. There's no excuses anymore. But I also am saying, I'm looking at the number, and I believe right now Caesars has it as 8.5.
Yeah.
In favor of Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put my money on Miami.
Money on Miami
I'm taking
after
Miami.
what
yeah.
you saw specifically
yes.
there.
My money's
Okay.
on Miami
And
for Game 2.
There's another
with the
storyline.
8.5, by the way.
Yeah.
So they can still lose.
Uh-huh.
But I'm
But you'll
saying
take the points.
I'll take the
Wait
points.
ahead.
By the way, it was
Wait
8.5. It was 8.5. Right before tip-off, it went to 9
Yeah.
yesterday, and the Nuggets easily covered. Now, Woj is reporting this specifically, that Tyler Hero could return Sunday for Game 2. He's been out since the Bucks series with a broken hand. How does that impact potentially the Heat? Because they need shooters.
Shot maker. He's a guy that can create for himself. I think that's important as well. Maybe now you got to worry about him. It opens up some things for Jimmy. Maybe there's more lanes for Jimmy to drive. So if he can play right away and give you an impact, I like it.
I think you got to be mindful that this is a very different team from when he went down.
Yes.
And
True.
so
True.
fit, cohesion,
True.
chemistry, connectivity, continuity, all of the words that indicate how a team plays together is important to note. But Heat culture, another C word, might cover up for all that.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.